the idea from the business owner standpoint is to give people in the firm skin in the game so they feel more incentivized to treat it like their own, like to treat it like they own the business. And with an ESOP, that's a way to share ownership and get everybody participating in the upside of the company. And what's interesting, the nationwide statistics for ESOPs show faster growth rates for companies that have an ESOP than the like a comparable company that doesn't have an ESOP.
Welcome to Investment Grade Practices podcast, where we believe private practice dentists deserve to get the lifestyle today while building an asset for tomorrow. Join your host, Victoria Peterson, to design the practice of your dreams and secure your financial independence. Let's get started.
Hello, and today help me welcome Erin Scannell. Did I say this correctly, Erin? Is it Scannell or Scannell?
It's Scannell, rhymes with channel.
I love it. And I am so appreciative of you being here today. You are with Heritage Wealth Advisors. You're part of my investing and team and wealth strategy team. And I couldn't be more excited to have you here today. Can I brag on you for just a moment?
Of course.
All right. So for all my listeners, I want you to know that Erin is not only a financial planner, he was named America's Top Wealth Advisors in 2021. He hit number 89 on that list of America's Top Wealth Advisors, and he was number 2 on the Forbes list of best in the state of Washington wealth advisors for 2021. Erin, I'm in awe of the conversation you and I just had, and I can't wait to share this with our listeners.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, there are some world events that are happening that I don't want to gloss over before we get into this conversation about creating wealth through our businesses. So can you speak just a little bit to some of the global events that are happening right now? The stock market's kind of going up and down like a yo-yo. I've got you here. You're America's best. I want to know, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting time with the Russia invasion of Ukraine. And so naturally, we all have our attention on it. All of us do. And the conversation we're having fairly frequently with clients is talking about how with a global event like this, unfortunately, global events like this happen every year. They're all different, but they happen every year. If you look at a calendar over the last 20 years, there's always something scary and negative happening. So we talk with clients about how it's important to really zero in on what is the economic impact of that event. And in this situation, there's a dramatic humanitarian impact, which is horrible. But from an economic standpoint, globally, there isn't actually a significant expected impact from this set of events. So we were calculating, even if oil prices stayed really high this year, which is one of the implications of that invasion, even if oil prices stayed at $120 a barrel, that would impact the GDP of the United States. So our economic growth rate would be impacted, but only by 0.5% to 0.75%. So even if that happens, the growth rate of the economy is still expected to be above average this year.
So the fundamentals of our economy seem to be strong.
Yeah, for sure.
Any projections about growth? Is the supply chain easing up? Are we getting back into growth?
Yeah, the economy is expected both by the average economist and by the IMF, International Monetary Fund, to grow by close to 4% this year. That's for the U.S. economy, which would be above average. That'd be fairly well above average for the last 15 years. Which has been largely a bull market in the stock market, and quite a bit above average long term, which is just over 3% has been the long term average. So expectations are solid this year for growth, even with the difficulties with supply chains and oil prices and inflation. There's a lot of headline news, negative news, but yet the fundamentals of the economy are pretty strong right now, with the consumer being very strong.
I love that. And that's one of the things that we love to focus on in investment grade practices. What is the difference between Cancelo and value? What's the difference between the noise in the marketplace and what is really happening in the real world? And what is happening more specifically, my little microcosm of my business? What can I really do to drive value and control some of the outcomes? Prior to getting on the show today, you and I talked about the three things doctors can really focus on within their business, like driving the equity at time of sale, driving the value between now and then. And then the third key that we really honed in on was better tax planning, so that at the time of sale, you've got a tax strategy, not simply a growth strategy or a value strategy. You know exactly how those are going to be taxed. Do you mind if we talk that a bit today?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, so kick it off. Our tax strategy, how many are there? Where do I begin?
There's a bunch of them. The tax code is, what is it now, 72,000 pages in the U.S. The Warren Buffetts of the world always argue that we should have the tax code on 1 or 2 pages. But lobbyists have driven a bunch of complexity into it over the years, and special interest groups. That's frustrating at one level, but it also means there is significant opportunity within the tax code for reduction of taxes. And we look at it in 3 main buckets: our tax planning, especially for business owners. One aspect of it has to do with reducing taxes in the current year on your cash flow, whether that's through large deductions or tax shelters or retirement plans or depreciation on real estate. That's one aspect of the tax planning. Then the 2 other aspects of the tax planning have to do with taxes on the eventual sale of your business. And one of those 2 aspects on the sale of business has to do with reducing taxes on the sale of a business, and the other one has to do with avoiding taxes on a portion or all of the sale of a business.
I love that. So with the reduction on current income, you had talked about tax advantage opportunities like health savings account, 401k, SEP, cash balance plans, things like that, paying your kids, having family members on there. Now, is there a point in time before the sale that you want to start reducing those, or that they get added back or normalized on the P&L?
Oh yeah, that's a really good point. We would, it's one of those things, that level of tax planning, it's the earlier the better would be the rule of thumb. So as soon as possible, looking at those ways to reduce taxes. So again, the HSA or the SEP or Simple Plan, or we're seeing a lot of activity in cash balance plans, because while the typical SEP or Simple allows a tax deduction of $13,000 to $58,000, those are big numbers. Cash balance plans can result in tax deductions of over $300,000, so substantially higher. So if someone's got really healthy cash flow, yes, there's huge opportunity for tax write-offs that most people just aren't aware of, or they haven't taken the time to go through.
Yeah, I know. Colin, one of my explainers, he goes, yes, it's a tax deduction, but pay off your debt because you get 100% of the interest back. So, right. Yep. So it's that balance. But I love that because dentistry as a profession and as a career is a 20-year, 30-year, 40-year lifespan. It's not like we're here for a couple of years and gone. So I love that you're introducing the concept. Do things today that can benefit your flow-through rate and reduce your taxes for the next decade. I paid my children and funded their Roth IRAs, and they each got out of college and still had $20, $30 there, paying them $100 a month when they were 8 years old and could empty the trash, things like that. So
that's such a good example too. Like when you do that simple spreadsheeting of if a young person, a teenager or someone in their early 20s has even a little bit of money in a tax-free account at that age, like a Roth IRA, like you did, what that'll be worth by the time they retire. So kudos to you for
they're great saves there, and it's because of those disciplines that we had early. So thank you for speaking to that, like the discipline you have as an owner. Don't go spend all your profits. I often talk about flipping the nick several times before your hand. So keep that money working for you. Take your profits and shelter those in tax advantage ways. You really piqued my interest though when you said I can reduce my tax or avoid tax completely at time of sale. So give me a couple of examples of how I could reduce my taxes in the sale process.
Yep. So a few ways. There's actually a lot of ways, but we have limited time. But one example that I think a lot of people are familiar with if they were to sell a business is deferring tax through an installment sale. An installment sale is where instead of getting a lump sum as a business owner, as a seller, you spread out your payments for your business over a number of years, and then you only pay tax as you get the money versus all in one year. That's a traditional installment sale, but there's a part of the code that applies to installment sales called 453A, and it allows a business owner to sell a business or a piece of real estate for that matter, get all the proceeds up front. So you don't have to spread the proceeds over 5 or 10 years, get it all up front, but you can defer the tax for 30 years. That is code 453A. So there's a few complexities to that strategy, but for a few of our clients, it has resulted in a dramatic reduction in tax.
I love that. So I may have to look at my real estate again, and that because you have some installments on that, there might be an incentive to have them refinance and then still take it. Ooh, you're giving me so much to think about. I wouldn't have any taxes until I was 9. I love this, Erin. My kids will pay taxes. All right, so give me another example. We can defer tax through installment sale, which doesn't mean we have to defer cash. There's tax code to help us with that. Give me another example of how I could reduce taxes at time sale.
Yeah, there's also like ESOPs, which are employee stock ownership plans, and you're very familiar with those, I know. But those allow you to sell either part or all of the business. And if the proceeds are invested in qualified replacement property, which can be stocks and or bonds, you have 100% deferral of the tax. So some owners, a lot of owners we know of actually sell only a portion of their business to an ESOP. So you don't have to sell the whole business, but they do that because they want a pile of cash. They want some liquidity. They have some stuff they want to buy. Maybe it's a house or something. But they, at the same time, they want to maintain control over their business. They don't want to sell the whole thing. They don't want to get out yet. They're not ready. And ESOPs are really tax efficient to the owner. They're also tax effective for the company too, because the payments made into the ESOP are partially tax deductible.
That's right. Both the principal and the interest become tax deductible. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. Versus traditional loan, which only interest is deductible.
Correct.
I know we're getting into some really deep waters here, and Productiveness Academy is an ESOP company. We are 33% our employees. That's what I love, is that when a consultant goes out or our marketing group, they are not just designing a website or brochure. They are really serving our clients at a high level as if they own the company, because they own the company, and we love that part. So that sets up retirement plan for them. Also, what happens, let's say a doctor has an associate that really wants to have partnership. There's so many different types of partnership, right? There's profit partnership, there's equity partnership, there's financial partnership, there's silent partners, but ESOP is a form of partnership. So that at the time of sale, eventual sale, the associate doctors and the employees have gained in that sale. Is that true?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where what's interesting is with ESOPs, the philosophy around ESOPs has evolved where the idea from the business owner standpoint is to give people in the firm skin in the game so they feel more incentivized to treat it like their own, like to treat it like they own the business. And with an ESOP, that's a way to share ownership and get everybody participating in the upside of the company. And what's interesting, the nationwide statistics for ESOPs show faster growth rates for companies that have an ESOP than the like a comparable company that doesn't have an ESOP. And the theory is because people, it's like my coach always tells me, no one ever took their rental car to a park. You're renting something, you treat it differently than when you own it.
That's true. So why don't more small business owners know about this, choose it?
I think because a lot of small business owners get most of their advice from a CPA, and CPAs are really good in doing tax returns typically, but they're so busy doing the tax return that not as much of the time or conversation with the business owner goes into strategy, like looking at 3 years out or 5 years out or 10 years out. And that's where you guys, I know, help a lot. That's what we end up doing with our business owner clients, is getting out of the whirlwind of the day-to-day, the current moment, the current tax year, and looking at 3, 5, 10 years out. And that's where the needle can be moved dramatically tax-wise.
Yeah, I think my husband and I are on opposite sides of the coin with this. This is so complex. Why do you do these things? Why can't it just be? Why do we have all the LLCs for real estate and this for that? And I was like, because that's how you do it when you want to play this game.
Right. That's a really good point, because they are strategies like that bring an extra level of complexity. But then if you can save a dramatic amount of tax, a lot of times it's worth it. But that's a process for each of us to go through and make that decision for ourselves.
Okay, so you gave us some great, anybody can do this today, reduction of tax, current income. You gave us an installment sale tax strategies. This happens, I think, when dentists transition to another solo owner or into a group or even a DSO. There is some deferment that can happen. So I think you've piqued our into looking deeper than just the offer that's on the table. Certainly, if you want to transfer fan wealth or bring in employees into ownership in a non-traditional way, then the ESOP was an option there. I think we have a little bit more time. If I'm truly financially independent and I don't need my money, tell me how to avoid taxes altogether.
And that's where it gets fun, going from reducing taxes to avoiding them altogether. And there's a few strategies that in some ways can be universal. They can apply to almost any business owner. One, not everyone, but almost anyone. One is called a tax-free reorganization or statutory merger. And that's where one company buys another company. And you can sometimes structure that as a tax-free merger. I have a number of friends that have done this, and I've done it in my own business with other partners. The number two strategy would be a capital gains bypass trust. And those are trusts that allow you to avoid paying tax when something you own is sold at a profit, like a business. It also works for stock, Amazon or Microsoft stock, or an apartment building or real estate. The capital gains bypass trust, the money eventually has to go to charity, but in some cases you can defer that money going to charity for the entire life of the seller of the business, as well as either the kids or grandkids of that business. So the money can stay within the family, where income can be received by that trust, by the family, for decades, multiple decades. And then again, eventually the money goes to charity. But there can be so many tax benefits to that strategy, they can more than offset the money that goes to charity decades in the future. So that's one. And maybe I'll pause there because we are getting kind of deep into this.
Yeah, that's what I think I love the most, Erin. I can see why Forbes magazine and others are really recognizing your talent. There is, I love the line that you said our CPAs, are maybe insurance agents, 401k managers, things like that. Sometimes they're so rightfully so focused on the day-to-day of compliance and keeping you in safe harbors that they don't really have the bandwidth to helicopter up and look at these bigger macro strategies. And when you're building investment grade practice or any type of investment grade business, it sounds like it really is beneficial to take a pause, go up in the helicopter and look 10 years out, 20 years out, and ask the questions, what could or should I be doing today? How would that shift as I got closer? And how do I optimize the path all the way through?
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And we're seeing this dynamic play out where last year was the first year in the history of our country where billionaires pay a lower tax rate on average than the working class, as defined as someone making $38,000 a year. So if we're in a progressive tax system where the more money you make, the more money you're supposed to pay in tax, but in reality, it's not occurring that way, where the very, very wealthy are paying a lower average rate than the working class. That means there's massive complexity built into the tax code, but it also means there's massive opportunity for someone who does helicopter up, I like that term, and looks out into the future and uses strategy to get ahead and to proactively reduce taxes, because we all have a degree of control over that. Just a lot of people don't take it.
I love it. Thank you so much for being with us today, Erin. I'll make sure that in show notes we get both your email and web address. For those listening, you can plan with HWA. That's PLANWITH, capital HWA at MEF.com. And we'll get that in the show notes. Eric, this has been a massive education, and I'm going to be downloading and digesting some of your suggestions for quite a while.
Oh, awesome. Thanks for the opportunity and appreciate the chance to talk with y'all.
Reagan Robertson here with Productive Dentist Academy. Get ready to join your favorite podcast hosts, Dr. Bruce B. Baird, Victoria Peterson, Dr. Chad Johnson, and myself, Reagan Robertson, at the nation's #1 dental business course that guarantees practice growth. That's right, full immersion CE, so you can consistently produce more and align your team for results without compromising excellent patient care. Productive Dentist Academy has a special running this month that you can activate immediately. It's called the PDA Productivity Bundle. And we put this together so that you could attend this workshop, which is happening September 22nd to the 24th in Frisco, Texas at the Hyatt Regency, along with tools to make sure that not only are you getting great education on how to increase your productivity, how to communicate better with your team and your patients, increase your case acceptance, authentic market practice, and more, you also get a 2-hour business advisory session before the workshop to really get clear on what matters to you most so that you can be set up for success at the workshop. And following the workshop, you get 12 months access to PDA On Demand. That is the entire productivity workshop on demand for you to make sure that you are doing everything you can in your power to soak up all of that CE and implement it come Monday morning, the next month, and the next month, and the next month for 12 months down the line. Registration is now open. The tuition cost is $2,195, which is ridiculous because it's regularly $5,528 for the productivity workshop attendance, 2-hour business advisory session, and 12 months access to PDA On Demand. Hop on over right now to www.productivedentist.com/workshop to grab your registration today. Again, that is www.productivedentist.com/workshop. If you cannot wait and you have to have it right now, email Brent, B-R-E-N-T, at productivedentist.com. That's Brent, B-R-E-N-T, at productivedentist.com, and we will save you a seat. I look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Investment Grade Practices Podcast. If you find value in this episode, help us spread the word by passing it along to a dental friend, subscribe, and give us a like on iTunes or Spotify. Learn more about building your investment grade practice at productivedentist.com today.